What's up, guys? Welcome to episode four, I think. All right, so this episode we're going to talk about currencies. We'll talk a little bit about the geopolitical ramifications and the state of the American dollar and apparently it's under attack and just overall how where we are today, which is it's almost the end of March. It's the 28th of March today, so it'll be interesting and. We're gonna before we start, just know I've been drinking, so whatever I say, it absolutely goes out the window. This is not financial advice. This is not nothing. This is just my opinion on things. So I'll try my best to give both sides, and then I'll give my opinion. I'll try not to keep it, too biased, right? So, yeah, all right, let's get into it. So, God, I missed 805, man. Freaking awesome beer. We'll start off with the post I posted. It was obviously about how China and Russia and Saudi Arabia, possibly a bunch of other countries, are trying to, plot and scheme against America and, take away our reserve currency status. So let's just give a quick little history lesson about how we got here. America became the predominant, country and the reserve currency pretty much after World War II. Technically after World War I, but definitely after World War II. And it was like $35 an ounce, and everybody trusted that you could trade in your dollars and it'd be worth $35 an ounce. And, when we ran our deficit too high, we would have to take our gold reserve, give it to the country we owed it to, and they would bring it back, yada, yada, yada. 70s came around, and Mr. Nixon there was like, enough of this. We want all the money, baby. We want all the power. We want to print unlimitedly. To remove the gold standard. And and it was just backed by the good faith of the United States government. And there's a lot of people that say it's still backed by, the power of our military. And of course it is. Our military is extremely powerful. We could fuck some shit up. We really can. And the economic strength of America, which a lot of people talk shit, man. They do. America's declining nation. Look at our streets. Look at our schools. All this, and this, and that. But yet, I mean, dude, it's 2023. We got fucking, nice phones, nice MacBooks. I mean, the productivity in our country has gone up like crazy. I mean, like Netflix and all the social media, it's all America. It's all America. You know what I mean? So it's not bullshit. It's real. Like the economic production is real. Like we literally have trillion-dollar companies. We have companies that are American companies that are worth more than countries. I just want you guys to understand that for a second. Because sometimes we get caught up in the news cycle and we're like, oh my God, but the reality is like shit's just going to progress normally, right? Like, let's take this for example. We'll take that fear-mongering piece from the Fox News side, and you can say, "Oh my God, it's not fear-mongering. It could happen." Of course, it could happen. Anything could fucking happen, right? Anything could happen. So their perspective, and I cut the other part of the clip out. They had like a chick come on. I think she was a former Treasury Secretary, or assistant or something. Like she knows what she's talking about. It wasn't she was uncredible, but I just wanted that clickbait just spark the conversation, right? And she comes on and she talks about, one of the main reasons I kind of left out was, not just the gold standard, but it was the fact that all the countries currently around the world, in order to receive oil, which is the backblood of our human society, right? Because it's crude oil, which is like petrol oil. So it's used for literally to make everything. It's not just gas. Those transactions, because of OPEC, had to be settled in American dollars. So that created a thirst for American dollars to settle the transactions, right? And the idea was that the dollar was so strong that other currencies will fluctuate, but if you were paid in dollars, you were always straight. The threat to it today is we've spent too much and we're abusing our power, which we are. We have a privilege of being the world's reserve currency, and we have weaponized the dollar against our political enemies. Perfect example is we have put sanctions on Russia, and we have tried to stop them like dead in their tracks of being able to do anything economically. We want them to fold and collapse and say, "Oh, mighty dollar, well, we'll do whatever, bro. Come on, just give us some of that. Just give us some of that dollar." And Russia stood up and was like, "Nah, I think we'll be all right." They built up a big, strong gold reserve, and they started trading with China. Now China's like, "Well, we got these boys on board. Okay, together these guys are strong." And because China does need food exported. Russia's a huge food exporter, and then boom, boom, and you got a bunch of all these other countries. You got Iran, now you got Saudi Arabia flirting, and eventually, before you know it, the world gets split in two. You're either with the American dollar or you're on the new cycle, which is probably the Chinese dollar, the RMB, or whatever they want to call it, right? And that's the fear, is what happens is when we lose that, economically speaking, what does that mean? Is like we just lose influence. We lose influence in the world. No one really cares about what American sanctions are, because they're going to live in a whole different. They're not going to trade with us. They'll just trade amongst themselves, and they got all the resources they need to trade themselves. We don't bring anything extra to the table. Biden's done a really good job of making us dependent on foreign oil. And that's the fear mongering side, and the other side of the coin is like, well, if we have weaponized the dollar, why wouldn't China weaponize the dollar? Right? Like if you're going against China, you speak out against them, they'll just shut you down. They'll just like America does. And there's nothing stopping from that from happening. Right? Like who do you really trust more? And this is my other argument against, the world ending and China's going to, do you really want to get paid in Chinese dollars? I don't. I don't trust those people, or at least the government, like that, I don't know anything about, the individual Chinese person. You judge them as like a human level, but I'm talking about the government body. I don't trust the Chinese government. I don't trust the American government, but I trust the American government a whole lot more than I trust the Chinese government, right? So then the issue becomes like, which way is the world splitting? And I've long said this. It's just, we're going to live in two worlds, guys. We're going to live on the world of the West and then the world of the East. And, they got all these people saying, oh, there's going to be hyperinflation. It's going to lead to, the dollar defaulting. And then we're going to have the federal digital coin come in. And yeah, they have already ran a pilot program. And in a sense, we lose a lot of freedom. We lose a lot of freedom in that aspect. And here's why. And I don't know if it's good or bad. And, it's such an interesting topic, because it's like trying to say, it's always that old joke, right? Like, well, why don't you let the government spy on you? You're not hiding anything, are you? And it's like, oh yeah, I'm not hiding anything. Come on in, but it's also like, as a human level, bro, you kind of want privacy. I'm all for being transparent, but do I really want the government to know what I'm buying, why I'm buying it, and know every single one of my behaviors, every single keystroke, every single thought? That's a lot of power for somebody to have, to just boom, shut you off, right? And you might say, well, they got the credit score now, so what does that make any different than the federal government controlling all the money and having, like the federal banking system be all digital, no cash, right? Cash is gone, the dollar's gone. It's just the Fed dollar now, right? And it's like, it's scary, because now they have complete control. Like, at least even if I have a shit credit score, I could still go do jobs. I could still earn hard cash, and I could move without anybody knowing how I'm moving, and I could survive, right? But when it comes to the Federal Reserve just saying, okay, no more cash at all, like the American dollar fell, we went to whatever, now we're going to this new Fed coin, or whatever you want to call it, and now they have, just like Canada, don't forget about Canada. Remember when the big rigs, truckers tried to protest, and if you're a Canadian citizen and you donated, they would come after you. Like, that's scary. What's stopping from the federal government from doing that? right? What happens if we have a COVID again, right? And all of a sudden they could GPS track if you're leaving your house or not. And if you decide to leave your house, well, we're not going to harm you physically, but bam, we're just going to shut down your ability to use Apple Pay, any banking, anything. What are you going to do out of your house? You can't even buy anything, right? These are the things that you have to think about when you're thinking about like these shifts. And then people might say, nah, man, it's not going to get that crazy. It's an interesting topic. Why wouldn't it get that crazy? The government has done nothing to suggest that they will respect our privacy. Not one thing. If it's in the best interest of the United States government, they're going to bend any and every rule. Look at the Patriot Act. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, no. But that's not for just American citizens. That's for terrorists. You know, it's like, if you cause enough commotion and you're not going with the program, believe me, they're going to be up your ass. And that is the direct road to being able to control a population. Because instead of you writing laws, you can, like Visa and MasterCard, just say, we're going to start tracking ammo and guns. And all of a sudden, well, we're the Fed coin. You can't use Fed coin to buy guns anymore. Then what? And you just kind of outlaw guns because no transactions can be done legally. You know, and you might think like, oh, this is going into conspiracy theory mode. And it's like, I'm just saying these are conversations that we need to have. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's a scary thought to think about. Like, how much control should a governing body have over the day-to-day lives of their citizens? And I could make the argument that you as a government being able to see exactly how I spend every penny day to day, not at the end of the year, but like, you know, on big expense or whatever, every day you get to see how I live and you get to get that data and you get to make decisions off of that. That's pretty freaking creepy. That's exactly what's happening to China. So my argument to the whole thing is like, what the hell? Why does it matter if it's China in control or America in control? It's almost the same thing. I'd rather much have America because at least I think I have the illusion of a right. But you know, these are the things that really, this is where money and politics intersect, right? And people always say, well, why's your page political? What's business? Well, if you're a real businessman and you're not paying attention to politics, you're not a real businessman. I don't know what else to say to you. You're not, because it's going to catch you sooner or later because you got to know what's going on in the world. You have to. Now, the economic ramifications, it'll be very interesting. I'm not going to even cap and try to pretend like I'm going to be able to understand or be able to predict what the hell can happen, you know, when this change happens. I just know change happens really fast, man. It happens really, really fast, right? It's not, you know, you have, what's that quote? You have decades of nothingness, and then you have, you know, a couple of weeks where decades happen, you know? And all these guys, like, if you look at, you know, Russia, you look at China, they got everything to gain and nothing to lose, you know? And this is, you know, politically speaking, this is why I said the move in Iraq. I mean, well, yeah, Iraq too, but the move in Iran, God damn it, what am I talking about? Alcohol must be hitting. The move in Ukraine was bad because we literally showed the whole rest of the world, like, you mess with us, we'll sanction you, and this is what we're going to do. It gives every nation a reason not to align with America. Nobody likes to be told what to do, bro. Nobody does. Not your spouse, not your significant other, not your friends, not your family, not your nobody likes to be told what to do. You want to have options. You want to be able to choose for yourself. And any time that you back anybody into a position where they feel like they have no control, they're gonna want to go to something that gives them freedom. And, you know, you could say Bitcoin and all of this. Somebody's probably listening to this screaming like, bro, Bitcoin's the answer. Bitcoin's the way. I mean, to a certain extent, sure. But Bitcoin is just as trackable as everything else if they know what your wallet is, right? It's not like you have ambiguity like you would with the actual cold hard cash dollar, right? But the whole Bitcoin argument that I always laughed about when, you know, you had all these guys talking about it's, you know, I remember Clubhouse being on there getting in an argument and I was like, yeah, this is dumb. I'm never going to argue this again because you just realize when someone's stupid, you just can't argue with them. You're just like, all right, bro. Like, you know, like he was just like, and a lot of Bitcoiners are flawed for this. Like, we don't need the government. We got ourselves. I got my Bitcoin, and that's all I need. And it's like, dude, that's not how a freaking society functions. It's never functioned that way. All the way from the dawn of time. Let's not even take about today, and let's talk about the dawn of time, right? Like, you ran into another humans. It was you, and you ran into like 10 people living in a tribe. To be a part of that society, to be a part of that tribe, there's inherent freedoms that you have to give up, because it's a collective now. You have to work together, right? And that's the fundamental basis of a society. You know, you have to give taxes up. Yeah, some taxes are going to bullshit that you don't agree with, but the taxes you're paying are also going to maintaining those roads. And trust me, the roads in America are a lot better than the roads in a foreign country, like a lot better. And it's also going to pay the firefighters and to pay the policemen and to pay the teachers to teach your kids. You need to be able to collect tax in order to have a society. So this idea that like Bitcoin is going to be taxless and it's like whatever, like come take it. It's like, it's just not possible. It's not possible. Only thing they're going to do is just, okay, if you're going to do that game, all the government will actually make the government's job a lot easier if they don't charge a tax, because what they're going to do is just charge a consumption tax, right? Because a business has to have a physical location. So there's jack up the hell out of those property tax rates. And then that business is just going to have to pass that cost down to you as an individual. And if you own a home, they'll jack up the property tax there. And if you live in an apartment complex, someone owns that apartment complex, they'll jack up the tax there. And then they will use force to come and they'll collect their Bitcoin. So the government isn't going anywhere, right? I do think Bitcoin provides the best solution as far as capping the 21 million coins. Like, really, that's really what the core fundamental principles of money is, right? Like, you need that scarcity effect. Like, money is only valuable, like, or even, it's not even about money, right? It's you could use anything as an intermediary as an exchange, right? I could, toss you a couple of cans of beer, like we're bartering, and you could give me a hoodie, right? It doesn't really matter, but you want to have a consistent thing that you could transact, right? You don't want to use actual physical goods. You want to make it quick. And Bitcoin does solve a lot of those issues. We would need to incorporate Bitcoin into our system. And I think that would be the best. I think that would be the best solution, because it's clearly not regular fiat. It's clearly not. And it's very evident that we cannot trust our government to continue to just print money like they do. And another scary thing, like our national debt is not a joke, guys. It's not. Like, it is scary times. Like, I don't want to like alarm people, but like we need to start making a change like yesterday. And with the rates being where they are, like you're talking about just to service our debt that we're already in, we're paying $1 trillion. That's insane. In debt. All this stuff is very concerning. And it's like, so what, like, what do we do on a macro level? What do me and you do, bro? What can we do if we're regular people working regular jobs, right? We're trying to raise our families. We're trying to, live our lives, and we don't have any aspirations. We just want to live a comfortable, good life and be able to enjoy our family and friends. Like, what can we do? What should we do? Whatever, I can't really give advice on what you should do exactly, because everyone's situation is different. Everyone's dreams are different, but I can give my opinion on what I think the basics would be, how to like protect yourself. I definitely think no matter what environment you're in, you should never be scared to acquire assets. It doesn't matter if we were back in the Roman times or today. If you had things that made money, you were pretty well off no matter what. If you were a Roman and you owned a couple of bathhouses and a couple of apartments, like, you were still good. You were collecting money. And that's what it all came down to, right? Was like, if it's the RMB or if it's Bitcoin or if it's dollars or whatever the hell it ends up being, your skill set as an individual should be, how can I collect that thing? We could pay each other in freaking 805 beers, right? Like, oh, it's a 12 pack to rent this, 1-bedroom apartment. Well, okay, if I own that, then yeah, I collect the 12 pack and I got to give 8 to the bank and 4 for me to spend on whatever, right? The fundamental principle that you need to understand throughout all this bullshit is don't get scared, don't get intimidated, don't get bullied into someone telling you, oh, you need to hoard cash, you need to hold gold and metal. No, you need assets. You need assets no matter what. It doesn't matter what we're in, like what's going on in the world. You are only going to be okay if you're working to have assets. And I want to be very broad on the assets term, right? It's not just owning rentals or owning a good business. There's also intangible assets that you need yourself, your people skills, your emotional skills. You know what I mean? Your ability to network. It's true. Your network ability is your net worth ability. Because like you need to be able to know people in order to get things done. That's not going to change today. That's not going to change tomorrow. It's not going to change if America runs things or if China runs things. It doesn't matter. These are the assets that you need, not just cold, hard assets, but assets in yourself too. These are the things that you need in order to be able to succeed. And which way do I think the world is really headed? I said it before, I'll say it again. Like, I believe in America until we, dramatically change the way we respect property rights. But the world is going to get split in two before the end of this decade. There's no doubt about it in my mind. There's going to be the Chinese way of doing things and the East, and then there's going to be the Western way of doing things. And I project that it's probably going to be China, Russia, like Iran, Syria, maybe a few of those. Definitely North Korea will be a part of that, and a few more of those bad actors that we consider bad actors will team up and trade and be away from the American dollar, right? That's what I project, and then we'll live our world our way, and things will shift. Like a lot of the production that we now get from China, that production will shift into India, or it'll come back home, or it'll go to Mexico. Like, we'll be okay. It's just we're gonna have to figure out loopholes and different ways to do things in this new brave world that we're being thrust upon into. And to the point of the geopolitical side of this, like, how did this work, right? Like, we know that Saudi Arabia is a key player in how they decide if they're going to take RMB instead of the dollar to settle the oil. And like, what does Saudi Arabia really want? Like, what type of people are they? They want power. They like money. They like to have the influence. I think they're going to cozy up to America at the end because they know deep down that America is going to be the real winner. But they'll do business with anybody. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just play both sides. And I think that's what they're going to do. Because you got to remember, they have their own little, issues, right? Like, they're bombing the hell out of Yemen. They want to be able to continue to do that. They don't like Iran becoming a power. So they are friendly with Israel for that standpoint to keep Iran down. Because they want to be the predominant leader there in the OPEC nations. And they want to be able to have that influence, right? And it's kind of like a high school drama, right? Like, who likes who's friends with who's beefing with who, So it's a lot more complicated than just a 1, 2, 3, we're doing business, right? In my opinion, it's going to be split in two. Saudi Arabia will play both sides. Why not? Why wouldn't they? It's in their best benefit. And for people like us, the normal people, it's like, yeah, man, I hope we do kind of protest the fact that there's a Fed dollar and everything's digital. There's a digital dollar. Because a lot of our freedom does get eroded, and you can make all the promises you want. Like, the federal government will never look at it. We don't have insight. I don't believe them for a fucking second. Because they already did it with our phones and the NSA tapping our phones without our knowledge and it not being exposed until Snowden did, right? And Julian Assange did. And who knows what the government's going to do with this amount of power. And that is kind of like, it was inevitable, really. Like, it really was that we were going to go digital. But more than anything, the main conversation now has to become like our data and our privacy, man. Not just online, not just here, like, but also our singular transactions. It's all relevant. It's all relevant. Like, how much of yourself do you want to reveal to a stranger? Because I got to remember, the government, when we think about the government, it's just a bunch of us. You listening to this, like me and you, we could go run for office today and we could be part of the government if we win the election. Right? It's just people watching people. It's not like just some, foreigners or, crazy. And that's the thing is like, I just, think about it this way. The way I love to think about it, I think a lot of people should think about government this way is how much power would you give your neighbor over you? And to me, that sums up like government in a whole. If you're okay with your neighbor being able to walk into your house whenever and just check up on you and make sure everything's good, then sure. But if you're like, hey, no, I like my neighbor, I respect my neighbor, but we have that fence, baby. That's, hey, I might ask them to keep an eye on my house when I'm gone, or maybe I ask them to, feed my dog. Everyone's a little bit different. Everyone's a little bit different, but that's how I would view government is how much power would you give your neighbor over you? And you're on that line, And yeah, and these issues that we discussed today right now that we talked about, this is like it's like the trickle effect, right? This is the top of the pyramid because how the money is controlled will determine how everything else in our society flows and goes. Everything else starts with the money. I don't give a shit about anything else. You give me the money, and we'll figure everything else out later. Because money will buy your political power. Money will be able to influence anything you want. If you have control of the money, you have control of the people. I just don't understand why people don't get this through their head. Like, why are they so concerned about blue hair and abortion and gun rights and all this and that? We should be waking up and be worried about how the money's going, where the money's flowing, and who controls the freaking money. Because that's how we're going to regain control of our society. But nobody cares. Nobody cares, man. Nobody cares. I post political stuff. I tell people how to make money, and it gets like 10 likes. I post some shit about, some chick with blue hair talking about whatever, and it goes fucking viral. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just, I guess people are intimidated by money. They're intimidated by talking about something that has a definitive yes or no, and they enjoy politics more because there is no definitive. It's all about how you feel, and you can't tell somebody that their feelings are wrong. I don't know, man. That's why I love talking to my friends about stuff like this because we can have these types of conversations I'm having right now, and then they'll add to it and it'll help me change my perspective. But then when it just comes to stupid shit, it's like, dude, there's no solutions. There's nothing we can do. At the end of our conversation I have with my friends, it's like, okay, we talked about this, we did all this. Like, how can we apply anything we talked about today to our actual life? What can we do? Because, we don't want to carry that stress, but we need to talk about it. We need to discuss what's going on, but we also need to bring things, back to reality. And like I said, man, my back to reality is just that for us. It's just like, it's not going to change how I'm doing business tomorrow or the next day. I'm still going to be out there trying to acquire assets until I feel like I have way more than enough that I don't got to do anything other than what I want to do and when I want to do it. That's my goal. It's not to have more material goods or whatever. My goal, my obsession with obtaining assets is really for me to be able to buy my time back, right? If you go to a job and it's like 80 racks a year and whatever it is that you're making, if I can make that doing whatever passively, I bought my time back. I don't owe anyone anything. All my time is mine now. I can do whatever I want. I can focus on the things I want. That's my desire. And that desire isn't going to change under any regime or whatever, unless I have to, like, unless, we get invaded and then China comes in and whatever. But for the basic parts, yeah, that's what I'm chasing. It's not going to, none of this is going to stop me from continuing to go out there and do the best I can every day to put myself in a better position to acquire more assets, whatever they might be. It might be stocks, more real estate, another business. I don't know. There's some plays to be made, always a play to be made. But a lot of this stuff has been concerning, and it's just funny because all this is coming to like a crash course. Well, not a crash course, but like it's coming to a headwind. It's coming to a collision. It's coming head on with like everything happening. Our debt being 30 trillion, these banks failing, China and Russia now deciding to go. It's like the freaking perfect storm. You know, for that Kanye West song. 87 degrees. Like perfect tornado weather. Everything has to be perfect in order for a hurricane. It was a hurricane, and for a hurricane to brew. And I feel like that's what's headed towards us. It's like an economic hurricane that's going to devastate us. And we don't know when it's going to come. We just know we're smart enough to realize that high amounts of debt, bad. High amounts of inflation, bad. High interest rates, bad. So you have three bad. So even if you did two negatives equal a positive, that third negative, baby, we back to being negative. We know shit ain't going to be good. Like, we know shit's not going to be good. You know what I mean? And, yeah, we're going to have to see what happens, guys. I wish I had answers for you guys. I wish I could just tell you, oh, do this and buy this and everything will be all fine, But this is not life. Life is full of challenges. So we're going to have to face these head on. And like, in my caption, I said, we're going to be the generation that has to rebuild America. And I believe in us, man. We're very smart. We're very capable. Like, we're not, like they love to blame millennials. They're like, oh, he's a millennial. It's like, no, bro. Like, we grew up as the last real humans. We did. I didn't have a cell phone until I was like 16. You know what I mean? Like, we grew up having to look people in the eyes and tell them, like, hey, you want to hang out today? All right, cool. Be at the park at 5 o'clock after school, and you weren't texting your friend like, I can't make it. It's like, you showed up, and if you didn't show up, we weren't friends no more. We grew up in that generation. You know what I mean? And I think we're perfectly capable and ready to lead and to set things right. I really do. I believe in us a lot, man. I really do. And that's why I believe in America a lot. I think we're going to be okay. We have smart people across this country. We also had dumb people that put us in this position, but, life isn't perfect, right? Anyways, that's about 32 minutes, guys. I'm done, with my rant here. I really appreciate you if you listen through this whole thing. And I hope you gained something, some type of perspective in this rant. And look, if you could help me by sharing this podcast, I'd really appreciate it. Definitely like and comment on my post that I posted or whatever. And just appreciate you guys, man. I'll catch you guys on the next one.